Hi, and welcome to Fan Talk. Today we're going to do Throwback Thursday.
Throwback Thursdays.
And we did not communicate to each other about which movies we were going to do this week until we got here. And I'm like, hey, this is the movie I'm doing. And he's like, hey, this movie I'm doing. I'm like, they both came out the same year.
Yeah, 1984.
Yeah. So you have Dune. It's almost Patrick Stewart with hair at that point.
Nope.
Not quite?
No, not quite.
Okay, didn't go far enough back. And I have the Terminator.
Yeah.
So the new one coming out here in a couple of weeks. I was kind of looking forward to taking a look back at the Terminator first movie. It's actually my first R-rated movie because I wanted to go see Terminator 2 when it came out, and my dad was like, "I need to go see the first one. Well, let's rent the first one and watch it first, and then we'll go back and go to the theater." So I got to see the Terminator at home. It was my first R-rated movie. It came out in 1984. It was James Cameron's first screenplay of a big budget movie.
Big budget movie.
He got the idea while he was sick one night. Had a dream about a mechanical or metallic torso climbing out of a explosion fire, like with steak knives in his hands or something, like just something really kind of walled out. And that developed into the whole Terminator concept. You kind of see that after, like in some of the movies where you see like Terminator like kind of crawling away from an explosion. I think he kind of built that imagery into that.
Yeah.
So he worked on the screenplay, had some friends help him out. The first version had the T-1000 liquid metal, but being at that point 1983, 1982, realized that the budget of the day or the technology of the day could not do that. And he would be right. He would have been right.
Yes.
So he removed that and then incorporated the Kyle Reese character instead. And he ended up selling the screenplay for $1 to Gail Hurd. With the built-in promise that if it was actually produced, he gets to direct. And she agreed, and that's how it got done. And then he found financing, found a distributor through Orion Pictures. And then they kept kind of tweaking the thing a little bit here and there, but he said overall it got good artistic direction. And the casting, I thought, was interesting, some of the decisions. They originally were wanting Schwarzenegger or somebody big like Stallone or whatever to be Kyle Reese, and he's like,
yeah,
if we have Kyle Reese being that big, we need somebody even bigger to be the Terminator. He's like, you got to think about this. And he actually went into the Arnold's first audition intending on sabotaging it because he didn't want him to be the Terminator either. He just didn't think he'd be right for the part. And then he went in there, and Arnold was like started sitting down talking to him about the his ideas for how to play the character, like, using his eyes kind of like a security camera, just all these little things, like his ideas. And Cameron said, like, he's like, I sat there and I just kind of found myself like, doing some drawings like a Schwarzenegger standing there in front of me, kind of like the Terminator, like, his face and stuff. And he's like, I really connected on it, and we ended up deciding to use him as a Terminator. Worked out well. Going back just a little bit, the studio had offered to, or said to Cameron that we think O.J. Simpson would be good as a Terminator.
The Terminator, yeah.
And
O.J. Simpson was almost offered the part, yeah.
Cameron turned it down because he's like, people wouldn't believe him as a murderer.
Yeah. I've actually read that. They're like, no, nobody's ever going to believe that guy kill anybody. He's a sweetheart. Yeah. He's a sweet guy, that one.
Well, if you saw him in the Naked Gun series, you'd be like, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But, you never know.
You never really know, people.
This is one of the first in a big series of movies, and also cornerstone of sci-fi action about issues and concerns and fears, paranoia of AI dominance. Mm-hmm. And it's really the cornerstone movie for that, because
it's still this day really is.
Yeah.
I mean, and between that and Isaac Asimov's stuff, I mean, more of Isaac Asimov's, the rules of of robotics and Terminator are the big worries of AI and the things that people like legitimately look at those writings and those stories as we're stepping into that part of our history, because there is that fear of what if.
Yeah. And this is definitely a very dark look at the future. This, along with the Mad Max series, kind of shows very dystopian futures, which for a while science fiction was very bright futures, or at least very bright on their outlook. As far as like Star Trek was very optimistic. Even Star Trek was very optimistic. Star Wars at least had a kind of a New Hope.
Yeah.
Had the bright outlook that good is going to win.
Yeah. And
then you had some in the late 70s, early 80s. You had some very dystopian future movies, and this being one of the key cornerstone ones. Obviously, this went on to do well for a budget of $6.4 million. It grossed $78 million in the box office, which that sounds quaint for nowadays, but,
at
for
the time
that
was huge.
Yeah, that's over a 12 times 10, 11, 12 return on investment.
Yeah,
which is massive for a movie.
Yeah,
and this is one that even the studios, like when they're releasing, they're like, just put it out and we'll just bite the bullet. It isn't gonna make anything.
Yeah,
it's number 1 2 weeks in a row. And without really much of a major marketing push or anything, they just kind of put it out and it just caught like wildfire.
And it seems like
and
I read
for R-rated movie too.
Yeah, it seems like I read something about Arnold Schwarzenegger too. At one point in time, he was embarrassed of it and was just telling people it's like a stupid robot movie I'm in. It's never going to be successful.
While it was being made, I came across that in my research on this. So people were asking like, "Oh, it's just some old movie I'm doing. I'll be done in a few days."
Yeah,
like he basically took it. He's like, "This is a small enough movie that it won't hurt my career if it's bad, but it's an interesting enough movie. I want to give it a shot."
Yeah, but he was telling people it was awful and that this, that, and the other. And he just didn't expect anything from it, and then it exploded. And you can say that movie made his career.
Yeah, I mean, he's already doing the Conan stuff, but this is what launched him to the next level.
Yeah,
and also same with James Cameron too, because while he was waiting for the Arnold to be freed up from his screening obligations, he ended up working on the script for Aliens in his off time.
Yeah,
and also some other movies too. A couple of things. Michael Biehn, he studied Polish resistance in World War II as far as like his inspiration for the character, movement, just outlook and everything else. So that was kind of neat. And then Arnold tried to get the phrase to be "I will be back" because he couldn't wrap his mouth around "I'll" for the longest time. And also he said a machine or a computer is not going to use contractions. And
that actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Data doesn't in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But Cameron's like, nope, it's going to be "I'll." And so they have to just keep working with him until he could actually say it and end up being obviously his catchphrase.
Yeah, "I'll be back."
And also this is an early movie by the late, great Bill Paxton as one of the punks of the early scene.
I freaking love Bill Paxton. That was really tragic, too, because he was still fairly young. He was a young man, so...
But yeah, this is I think uncredited role in this one. Is so far back.
Yeah, but what's funny is that's one of those films. If you're a Bill Paxton fan, that's just a great scene. He's got his hair all spiked up, and he's like, "Laundry day, nothing clean, right?" Yeah. it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, this is only a few short years before he's Game Over Man and Aliens.
Yeah.
This obviously started a huge, massive franchise for merchandising and everything else. But as far as movies, it was followed up with incredibly successful T2, with getting the cast back together and adding in finally T1000 Liquid Metal Terminator. Terminator 3. Okay. No, it's okay. Two things stand out as a big problem in my head on that movie. And none of them have anything to do with the plot. One, him putting on the Elton John, sparkly whatever sunglasses. Yeah, too much funny. And then two, the bad Terminator in that one, like driving up to a billboard, like a Victoria's Secret billboard, and then seeing her chest inflate, like with the shape shifting stuff. I'm like, they're just starting to add too much camp to it.
Yeah.
But the actual movie is actually kind of fun to watch. It's not that bad. But then Terminator Salvation, I enjoyed it. It was definitely going a different direction with things, but. It was enjoyable. It's nice to see a lot more of the future stuff. Genesis, I'm on the... It wasn't good, but I enjoyed it as far as a fun action sci-fi.
Again, I could have took those last two as a standalone films that weren't Terminator films, or they were a Terminator film, but they just shot in that same world or something, but it didn't have to really be part of the main storyline, and I could have been maybe okay with them.
And that's kind of what they're doing now with having Dark Fate coming out and being like, forget those. Yeah, everything from T3 and afterwards. This is
T3. I actually kind of liked. A lot of people hated it. I kind of enjoyed it because I felt like one again. I thought they had some pretty good actors in it that played the roles, and then I liked the whole concept of that Judgment Day after the second movie. It can't be stopped. It wasn't something they needed to stop. It's something they have to survive. It's something that mankind has to move past, and that was kind of the whole idea of that film. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of dark, but it was a nice little twist at the end, too. Nice little twist. And so, at the end they had John Connor down there with the girl, and the subs are calling to him. He's telling them what's going on. You can see it like that's kind of the beginning of the resistance, And I thought it wasn't awful. I can see why it wasn't a huge success, but I can also, like you said, it was fun. I enjoyed it. After that, I was not really into the other.
They're more anthology style.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing Dark Dark Fate, which comes out here in a few short weeks. Also, the Sarah Connor Chronicles was an enjoyable TV show as well.
Yeah.
So what you got?
Okay,
from
so 1984. I went with Dune. Dune is a cult classic, something I really enjoy. Rotten Tomatoes might argue they score the movie at 53%, but fans score it at 66%. Again, it came out in 1984. It was directed by David Lynch.
I'll pause for a second. I forgot to tell you. My movie had 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, sorry.
No, it's directed by David Lynch, who, if you guys know who David Lynch is, he is very famous for doing very odd and unique kinds of films and very artistic. The movie was actually a book wrote by Frank Herbert, who has wrote a whole series about these characters in this world, which are all very, very incredibly popular.
Just out of curiosity, and they might not know because this might not have been part of your looking into it. Is the book series right before the movie came out, or is it back in the 60s or 50s?
It was actually the novel was extremely popular whenever it came out. I believe it was about 4 or 5 years old when the movie came out. I'd have to really look into it to be 100% certain on that. I actually haven't checked that though. But it was a star-studded cast, like a lot of the films I've covered. For some reason, up to this point, they had a lot of stars. This had Kyle MacLachlan in it. Sting was in it. Patrick Stewart, obvious, was in it. Virginia Madsen when she was very young, and Sheen Young, who is also in. Sean
Young was in it.
Yeah, okay. Sean Young. The other robot movie, but I'm just not Blade Runner. She was a character in Blade Runner. Linda Hunt, Max von Sydow, Dean Stockwell, Richard Jordan. All some of these people aren't huge famous in today's world, but at the time they're incredibly.
Yeah, the 80s.
The 80s they were very popular. Did lots of stuff. The movie actually made $39.9 million, and it cost $40 million, and it was not successful in the box office. Yes, in fact, it was very, very negatively reviewed by critics. And the funny thing is, a little history here: David Lynch was actually offered the directing job for a little Star Wars movie called Return of the Jedi. And George Lucas didn't want to direct it. He wanted somebody else to do it for him. And David Lynch actually told him, "That's your thing, it's not my thing." And he went with this film. And David Lynch took this film because he actually has gone on record for saying it was his sellout film. He had always done artistic things, and this was something that he was going to do. And the main reason he did it was he liked the idea of the world creating, being able to create all these worlds that he could, create in his own way. But the film cost a lot of money. He said he never really got a chance to be creative and do everything he wanted to do, and inevitably he disavowed the film and wanted to have nothing to do with it, up to the point that he actually refused to come to the final cuts of the film. And so the final cut, he had nothing to do with. And because it was so crazy, because the way he did film was so different than what the studio and everybody wanted to go with, it was kind of hard for him to piece together. So actually, the movie was released. There was 3 separate releases of the film. So the film came out. There was actually 3 versions of the film in different countries. So depending on where you lived, it would determine. You saw a different movie. And as you've seen throughout the years, as they keep releasing different cuts of this film, they're all kind of vastly different. There's.
I want to see the Snyder cut.
There's some stuff, and it's kind of funny actually. I was saying that whenever the movie was released on film, the cuts, instead of having David Lynch's name, it was Alan Smithy, which is a name used in all films that directors don't want to take credit for. Okay. So it wasn't just...
It's the John Doe for directors.
It's the John Doe for directors. And there was actually TV versions that were released later where his name was put on there as Judas Burton.
Okay.
Or no, Judas Booth. That's what it was. It's Judas Booth. So he had no credits in the film, for having anything to do with it. And for years, when they do interviews, he hates talking about Dune. He still hates it, and he says that he fundamentally thinks it's an awful movie. The funny thing is this movie has become a cult classic, and fans of this film are fanatical. I mean, the people that love it, and it's kind of still hit mixed reviews when it comes to fans of the book. Like half of the book fans are like, "Oh, that was a great film." The other half are like, But a little bit about the plot. This is a sci-fi like odyssey, basically, and it kind of goes around the concept that in the future there's all these different guilds, societies who've broken off. So you have like the Spacing Guild, which is all mathematics, and you have the Jesuits, and all these different factions. And the Spacing Guild are the only people that can travel through space, and they can travel by folding space, traveling without moving. But the only way that any of this can be done is with this chemical, basically called the spice. And the spice only exists on one planet in the whole universe, and that planet is Dune. And it's a desert planet in which there's never any rain. And there's these giant worms under the planet that just go and destroy freaking everything. And so it's really, it's kind of hard, exactly like Beetlejuice. And it's kind of hard to have civilization because these things can just wreck everything. And so it kind of starts off that there's these families. It's very like family oriented in the aspect of like these big warring houses, right? And so you have House Atreides, who is the main character's family, and you have House Harkonnen, and these families hate each other. And basically the rights to mine the spice has been taken away from one family and given to the other. And the emperor of the universe basically has done this because this house, the Atreides, are getting really popular, and he's afraid they might end up taking his rulership from him. So he thinks if he takes, the stuff from this family and gives it this family, it'll keep them warring with each other, and they'll kill the Duke for him, and thus he gets to keep power. Okay. And it's kind of his whole philosophy is he keeps these great houses kind of warring with each other, and they leave him alone. And so whenever the main character gets this planet, of course, there's a plot, and they kill his father, and they leave him in the desert to die. But the rural people, who are called the Fremen, they rescue him, and they have this prophecy that basically somebody's going to come and lead them to freedom. And basically, the movie unwinds that he is that prophet, and he is Muad'Dib, the prophet. And so the rest of the movie is really about him becoming this prophet of these people and avenging the death of his father and leading these people to freedom. And it has a lot of inner workings and story going on there. And the thing I like about David Lynch's version of this is he does really create a really dark artistic world. There's a couple versions of this film out there. There's a TV version, and there's a new version coming out next year, which I'm really excited to go and see. But it definitely is a very artistic film. And this film wasn't incredibly popularly received, but as we said, it's become a really cult classic.
It can make blockbuster for it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those that you don't want to miss. I think if you're a sci-fi fan, you have to see this movie. And
this is one of the kind of movies that was spread by home video rentals. People saying, "Hey, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie?" The word of mouth, like seeing it up on the employee favorites wall. This is that kind of movie that spread because of that kind of thing over the years.
Yeah, and it's also I remember when the movie...
Have you seen Dune? No, I haven't seen Dune. Oh man, you're missing out.
I remember when this movie came out, it was kind of like that. It was real hit and miss. Like when this movie came out, my cousin went and watched it at the theater, and I was younger. And she loved it. She was like, "Oh my God, this is the best movie I've ever seen, yada, 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 yada." My Uncle Bob went and watched it, and he was like, "I just don't know," And now he's a huge fan of it. But it's like one of those that he just, like, a lot of people that it came out was kind of like, "I'm not
counter
sure."
to what people used to sing.
Yeah, and at that time, 1984, this movie was really out there, where nowadays it's kind of like, it still kind of holds.
Meanwhile, that was only a year after the much more accessible Return of the Jedi came out.
Yeah, which I still think is kind of interesting that he basically said no in Return of the Jedi, which makes sense though, because Lucas wouldn't have given him any of that freedom that he had with Dune. It just wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, can I change the line to no?
But since David Lynch, I will say, out of all the stuff that he's done, there are people who are really into his work, and a lot of people who are really into his work actually really love this movie. And I think deep down it makes him crazy because he hates this film. And it is vastly different than anything else he's done. So But that being said, I mean, Dune's an awesome sci-fi flick.
If you haven't seen it, go out and see it. If you haven't seen
it, you need to go out and watch it. It's Sting's debut movie. I don't think he was in anything before this, and he plays a bad guy, and he plays it well. It's a little over the top and a lot of fun. So, and if you do watch it, there's several different versions. I recommend the director's cut is probably the best one out there, and it's one of those I say don't just necessarily don't stream it. Go and rent or buy a copy of it. Watch the extra features.
Yeah,
this is one of those that it's fun to one of these movies to go and explore all the extra footages, the deleted scenes, the different music tracks. This is a film that was filmed with a version which has a totally different music track to it. It's kind of one of those films that's kind of fun to watch more than once and dive into and dig through all those little nuggets of information that are out there about it. And
that kind of reminds me of Superman 2. It's kind of like that.
Yeah,
too.
There's some films out there you really want to watch the extra features and everything, and this is one of those films.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and check us out next Thursday for Throwback Thursday.